Hey everyone, let's talk about one of the biggest question marks in any career, knowing how you're actually doing. We're so often told to just, wait for that annual review to find out. But what if I told you there's a way to take control of your own growth? Well, that's what we're digging into today, the power of asking.
So let me just ask you this straight up. When was the last time you, and I mean willingly, not because you had to, went up to your boss or a teammate and just said, "Hey, how can I do better?" Seriously, take a second. If you're struggling to remember, you are definitely not alone.
You see, the truth is, most of us are working in what you could call a feedback vacuum. It's just the nature of the modern workplace, right? Things are busy, people are remote, and that clear, consistent feedback, it's just not happening. We're left trying to read the tea leaves, and that kind of uncertainty, it can really hold you back. So, how do we get out of this vacuum? Well, it all starts with a shift in your mindset. There's actually a term for this. Researchers call it feedback orientation. And honestly, it's the secret sauce that turns feedback from something you dread into something you actively hunt for.
So what is feedback orientation, really? Well, according to the researchers who coined the term, it's basically your entire attitude toward feedback. It's not just about whether you like getting it. It's much deeper. It shapes whether you see feedback as a personal attack or as an absolutely essential tool for getting better.
And this whole mindset is built on 4 key pillars. First, there's utility. That's the core belief that feedback is genuinely valuable. It's not just noise, it helps you win. Second is accountability. This is feeling that personal responsibility to actually do something with the feedback you get. Then there's social awareness, being curious about how other people see you. And finally, self-efficacy. This is huge. It's having that confidence to hear tough feedback without crumbling. Get these 4 things dialed in, and you've got a rock-solid foundation.
Okay, so you've got the mindset. Now, how do you actually get the goods? Turns out there are really 2 main ways people go about it.
On the one hand, you've got what's called inquiry. This is the direct approach, literally asking, what's one thing I could have done better in that presentation? The upside, you get super specific, actionable information. The downside, it feels pretty vulnerable. The other path is monitoring. This is more passive, watching your boss's body language or seeing how your work stacks up against a coworker's. It feels way safer, right? Less risky, but the information you get is often fuzzy, and it's so easy to misread the signs.
So if asking, inquiry, is obviously the better way to get clear information, why on earth do we avoid it so much? Well, it pretty much boils down to one single powerful fear: the fear of looking bad.
And look, this fear isn't just you being paranoid. Researchers have pointed this out for years. There are real, perceived social risks. We're terrified that asking for help makes us look incompetent or like we don't know what we're doing. It feels like you're putting a giant spotlight on your own weaknesses.
But here's the million-dollar question. Is that fear actually based in reality? Does asking for feedback truly make people think less of you? Get ready for this, because the research tells a completely different story. It turns out that, in most situations, seeking feedback doesn't make you look weak at all. In fact, it's often linked with being seen as more effective by your boss and your colleagues.
Now hold on, because there are some important details here. One study found that managers who went out of their way to ask for negative or constructive feedback were seen as more effective. Why? Because it shows you're serious about improving. But, funnily enough, constantly asking for praise, fishing for compliments, that could actually make you look worse. And there is one major exception. If someone is already considered a poor performer, asking for feedback can sometimes just confirm that negative opinion. So, context is everything.
All right, so for most of us, we've busted that myth about looking bad. So let's talk about the real-world payoff. What's the actual tangible benefit of doing all this? How does it move your career forward?
The research shows this beautiful, simple chain reaction. First, you build that strong feedback orientation. That mindset makes you way more likely to just go out and ask for feedback. And that simple act of asking is directly tied to getting better ratings from your boss. It's a clear path from mindset to results.
And this leads to 2 massive wins. First, yes, you get better performance ratings on your actual work, but it's more than that. It also builds a much stronger, higher quality relationship with your manager. Think about it. When you ask for their input, you're not just getting data. You're building trust, showing you value their opinion, and proving you're invested. That's gold.
So, let's wrap this up. What does all this mean for you right now? It means that sitting around, waiting in that feedback vacuum, that's a choice. It's not a sentence. You have so much more control over your own development than you probably realize. I want to leave you with this one thought. The truly game-changing feedback, the kind that shapes your entire career,
It's not going to be handed to you in an email or a yearly review. It's going to be the feedback you had the courage to go out and ask for. Your growth is, quite literally, in your hands. So the next time you're wondering where you stand, don't wait. Ask.